Hello, everyone. So glad to have you here with us today. I am with my friend Kimberly, my magical fairy friend, and we're going to be talking about different aspects of channeling. And so we are going to just be having a conversation about our experiences and some things that we think will be helpful for everyone in expanding their gifts. So, question that I have for Kimberly here is, what do you think channeling helps with? One of the topics that I wanted to bring up today is that with channeling, sometimes people are very afraid of getting into that line of work because they think aliens are going to take over your body. Or
Yeah, yeah.
you're going to get lost in your subconscious, or just a myriad of things that are surrounded with like fear programming and things. But to me, channeling really just helps us tap into different aspects of self to find solutions on things that we're trying to work out in life. Like we'll get deeper into this with spirit guides and things of that nature, but everything is a different reflection of you. Everyone, everything in the universe and the cosmos. And so when you look through that perceptual lens, it takes a lot of pressure off because it's like, oh, I'm just talking to me, just a
Mhm.
different personality, a different version. Everything is a teacher in the galaxy. So, what are your thoughts, or what has been your experience with what channeling has helped you with in life?
So the first thing is we are 100%, 1,000% in control of what happens to us.
Mm,
So if we choose to channel on our own, in our own realm, that the only thing that's going to come through is guidance from our own spirit guides, ancestors, if that's what you're choosing, or your higher selves. If you specifically wanted to go into channeling other beings and allowing them to enter your body, that is something that you can set up on your own. If you feel called to it, if something starts contacting you and you decide mutually that this is what you want to do, like Bashar, um,
mm,
that is very different than channeling through with a client for a session. What I always say in my sessions is that everything that I'm going to share is completely coming from you. I'm a conduit. This information is coming through me. Now, if I give advice or I share my opinion, I am channeling on a conversational level, and that is coming from a higher place, like my guides or my higher selves. There's a conversation going on that happens in every interaction with every human being that we connect with, that we
mm.
talk to. Like it's always happening where there are other connections, energy exchanges, conversations, learning lessons happening, but we're disconnected from that because unless you go through the channels of reconnecting to your dormant DNA and opening up your energy centers, you're closed off from those conversations. But when you start meeting with clients, when you do the internal work and you start to hear yourself and you get to the point where you realize that you are able to help others, and then you step into being a channeler in sessions with others, you are bringing down information from the ethers, and the only thing that you're sharing with that other person at that time is for their highest good, and they're asking for it, and it's designed specifically for them. So there's nothing scary involved because nobody else is involved except you and your client.
I
It
love
just
that. Or even channeling with self. You're just
Yeah.
it's things that are supposed to be of the highest good for you. I think that's great what you said about you have autonomy over your body.
Yeah.
Because when I first started getting into channeling, initially I was trying to channel my higher self. And I was struggling with connecting with her. And so I said, okay, if I can't hear her, then I'm going to try and channel my inner children because that's more tangible because I've already lived that experience with them. And I taught myself how to be a higher self, which helped me hear my higher self. But then when I
Mhm.
started expanding and I started working with ascended masters and deities, I had a real fear of, okay, well, if I open myself up to these realms, what if a negative entity comes in? Or what if it's a being that's trying to trick me? Or what if it tries to take over my energy field? And from somebody, and I'm sure you've experienced this, but somebody who's on the other side who's been channeling for a long time, if you say no, they cannot enter your field. If you say I am not allowing this, they cannot do the only way that that can happen is if you give permission for that to happen. Otherwise, what's going to come through if you set your channeling abilities to, I only want to receive what is of love and of what is light and what is positive, and not saying everything's positive. Trauma is very heavy. Like trauma is things that we need to like work through, but that's still a positive outcome that you're receiving in working with trauma, right? So as long as everything is positive and helping me in some type of capacity, that's all I want to receive. That is all that you will receive. Sometimes those lessons, though, are hard lessons, but it's still for your benefit.
Yeah,
Either
and we
way.
we have to remember that when trauma and lessons come through, it's so important to share that very directly. Just share what you see, because half of healing is just shedding light on the subject, bringing
Mm,
it forward, acknowledging it, and then you can let it go. So by if you see something scary or traumatic or painful or sad, our our human avatar wants to tread lightly, and you don't want to scare your client off. You don't want to um, have this conversation take a turn or whatever, right? But it's so important to bring that stuff up. Like don't focus on only the negative, but
mhm.
you see something, bring it up, because this is the moment. Like they're showing it to you because they want to get rid of it,
Yes. Yeah.
and it doesn't mean that the trauma existed, but it's in the past tense. And when you're channeling, you're in the moment. Like you're very in the moment. I mean, we're kind of somewhere else, but we're in the moment. And that's the other thing about it, is when you get in I think so there's so much confusion, and I had it. Like I would imagine your biggest comment that you hear, because this is the one I hear, is that I just don't know how to connect. I don't know how to tap in. I don't know how to hear my higher self. I don't know.
Or I don't know who's speaking to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And um I this is not easy, but it is the moment you realize how to do it. Get into a flow state, and don't have expectations, because if you get in your flow state and images start coming in, or however, whatever your clairs are, when that starts activating and you start seeing things, to me it kind of looks like I'm watching a movie sometimes, like not a continuous one, but like little fragments of a movie. Mine has a very heavy AI, for lack of a better way to explain that. It kind of looks like AI, so it's like a mixture of like reality and anime almost. It's
Hmm.
very cool, very cool, not scary. When I see that, I'm in the flow state, so I just start sharing the information that's coming through. I don't. It's effortless. I don't. You don't have to. So the reason we take these classes is because we want to be amongst other like-minded people who are on the same journey at the same energetic level of learning. And when we're learning from you, it's because you have this vast experience and you're really good at explaining it. but that but but what you're teaching us is how to do this for ourselves.
Hmm.
So even we can continue to be a student while we're actually participating and now utilizing our skills, because there is no handbook in a sense for how to do this, because everyone does it on an individual level. And stepping into it, the reason it works is because you let go.
Yeah,
The
that you
reason it
fully surrender over and you just
Yeah,
allow what to come through, what needs to come through without using your logical and analytical mind trying to justify things.
it's not
Yeah.
scary at all, at
Yeah.
all. And there it changes. Like new things come in for me all the time. And it doesn't even feel profound. I'll just realize afterwards, oh, I did mediumship in that session. Huh. Every session I do with a client, there is a point where I say, oh, I've never seen that before. Oh, it's
Mm-hmm.
never come to me that like that before, you know? And
Yeah.
it's because I'm multidimensional and so are they. And so because I allow things to come in freely and I literally just talk about them. That's it. I'm just telling you what I'm seeing. I'm just telling you what I'm feeling. Now like it is receiving information. I'll use the example of five senses, but clearly we're using more than five senses.
Mm-hmm.
When something comes in, I'm I'm observing it as a whole while I'm hearing it, while I'm seeing it, maybe even smelling it. So I am using my senses, but it all comes in at once. And
Mm-hmm.
so I just use my discernment how to explain it. And I don't even waste any time on how to explain it. I just share it, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and so I would imagine that most of that is like, so it's really not, it's not complicated. It's not complicated at all. Like we need to learn a lot of material before we start doing this, just because as our human avatar wants to learn as much as possible so that we're prepared and that we have this innate primitive desire to understand what we're capable of, and we're on an ascension journey which is very self um, contained, very much about self-awareness, very much about understanding who we are and what we have to share. But then once that collects to a certain point and we're able to use it, it is the most natural, easy, effortless, flowing interaction you can have with another person, because you remember who you are. You've had these gifts for eternity.
Yeah, that's what I explain to people is it's not really so much you learning, it's re-remembering the gifts that you already have and that we're all very intuitive, empathic, and psychic. And it's all these filter lenses and distortions from trauma, either from childhood or ancestral and generational or cosmic trauma, different incarnations. But you already know how to do all these things. That's your natural homeostasis. You are source. Source can do anything and all
Mhm.
things. Okay,
We're
so
all, you're
like
God. Yeah.
yeah, and we're all reflections of one another. So of course you would have information about that other person. You would be able
Mhm.
to see whatever you need to see or hear whatever you need to hear because you all come from the same source point, right? But we get in our own way because of programming and us being taught very specific ways to interpret and give information through the school system that we're not allowed to be in our natural intuitive abilities, right? But like you said, when I'm channeling after I learn how to get out of my own way and just say whatever comes up and just go with it, it's literally the most easy thing. That is my channeling is my flow state. If somebody comes and asks me for advice, bam, 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 and it is exactly what they need to hear every single time. And they're like, whoa, how did you get that? Like you said, it's not really coming from me. I do want to talk about that for a second. So, I was having a conversation with one of the QEA students the other day, and she was having a little bit of a fear of not having the right answers. And there are no right and wrong answers. There's perceptions. Okay. And a lot of what we're doing in helping people, helping them heal, is really just helping them see things in different ways, helping them understand themselves on a deeper level. We're not actually giving them the key that they need. Okay. So helping them see differently. But I was saying that when I am helping other people, I am helping them from my own knowledge bank of wisdom of my experiences that I've had here, all of the tools and resources that I've picked up, all of the research that I have done. Yes, that is part of it. But a lot of the answers are coming from other people's higher selves.
Mhm. Mhm.
They're coming from their inner children. They're coming from their different incarnations. It's just dropping into my awareness. And then I say the thing.
Mhm.
It's not so much work that I have to do. And I was telling her that at the beginning stages, when I first started giving Akashic record readings, I relied so heavily on other people's higher selves. I let them give me all the information that I need. But because I spend so much time building my knowledge bank and my tools and resources, their higher self is only one perspective.
True.
And
Yeah.
sometimes their higher self has biases
Mhm.
because they are linked in the same incarnation, right? And so I can come in as an outsider perspective and say, well, this is what's helped me in my life. or
Hmm.
this is what I've learned, right? And we find kind of this Venn diagram between me and their higher self to give advice. But it's not just you. You have a whole team of support of that other person's guides and higher selves and their ancestors that are open and willing to give you the information that you need, as long as you get out of your own way and you stop being afraid of either being wrong or feel like you're making things up, or that the other person is going to call you out and say like, oh no, you're wrong.
Hmm.
Sometimes you are picking up on things in people's subconscious that they're not actually aware of. It's not that you're wrong.
They're not
It's that
ready.
they're just
Yeah.
not ready yet, or you're prepping them, you're priming them, you're planting the seeds.
Yes.
I've had so many people come back to me a year or two later and be like, wow, you were right.
Yeah.
I ended up exactly where you told me I was going to be. Everything happened exactly, but I just wasn't ready to hear that information. But I prepped them for that. Or their higher self did, their guides.
So
Right?
those are like permission slips where you need to hear this permission slip so that when the time comes, you're ready for it and you receive it
Mhm.
because you've already accepted that it's either a possibility or absolutely going to happen. You're just kind of waiting for it to drop in. And
Oh,
then you
yeah.
can let it
Yeah.
go. That's the other thing
Mhm.
is you don't have to fixate on stuff. You can just let it go. Like if you're given a message that something's coming, you don't have to look for it hardcore and try to find it in everyday life. A few days from then, all of a sudden you're gonna be like, oh, that's okay. That's what it was. And it's funny. Every time I get a new gift, I'll realize two things. Oh, it's here. It wasn't even this like big thing. It
Yeah.
just it's here. It's here.
Dropped in.
And it may take me the next 2 years to fully understand how to use it, but it's here because you do. Like for me, my experience, when light language came in, I got the entire glossary, the full set of encyclopedias. Um, Still learning how to use it, but the vocabulary came in like in one download, if you could call it that. Um, but yeah, I think once you acknowledge that you have received something or you're operating on a level that you weren't the day before,
Hmm.
within a few self examinations, you're going to realize I've been doing this my whole life. I've been
Yes.
channeling my whole life. I've been
Yes.
downloading information. I've been very intuitive in perceiving someone's body language, or I've been intuitive when I've given life advice and people have said, "Oh my God, you're the like hearing it from you is the way I needed to hear it." And it might even be something that's never even happened in your own life. It's because you're downloading information. Like when you take a step back and realize that your entire life people have been coming up to you to talk to you about things. We've brought this up before. If you meet someone new and within 5 minutes they're telling you deep, vulnerable, like life stuff,
Yeah.
like you
I've
know
never, oh, I've never said this to anybody before.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's like me. My that's how I meet everybody.
Yeah.
Like, oh, okay. And but
Because
also,
you're an open channel to their higher self and their inner children and in different timelines. Like
dude,
you're reaching into their soul.
they've been waiting for you.
Yes.
If you're called to this and you have a conversation with a stranger and they open up to you, their higher self has been waiting for you. Please pull this down. Please. I've been dealing with this trauma that happened to me when I was 5 years old for 20 or 30 years. And now we're having a conversation and like, oh my gosh, I can hack through this. Like I can deal with it in a way of just because I'm speaking it out loud and now like or just because they're speaking it out loud and you share something, it could be the catalyst for them letting it go. So
Oh yeah.
to step up to that, as you're newly stepping into being a channeler, um allow those things to happen. Allow information to come through and say what you need to say, even if you feel like you might be overstepping your boundaries. Or I mean, and I'm not saying go try to tell somebody how to help.
These are people that are open and receptive to hearing. Like
Yeah,
we don't need to be
yeah,
trying to impose
yes,
healing others when they're not open to healing, because
yeah,
then you're just going to start doubting yourself And
because
say
they're
like,
going to
oh, this
fight.
must not be for me. Like I
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing this. No,
Yeah.
you should be doing it with the right persons that are
Yeah.
open and receptive, because then you get into a flow state with one another and you
Yeah.
can see the magic that you can actually create with one another.
And give subliminal, intentional subliminal messages on a regular basis too. Like I,
Yeah, explain that though, because it's for everybody. Like what, like, do you mean planting seeds or
Mhm.
also projecting certain messages to them? Because we're all very telepathic, whether we're consciously aware of it or not. So oftentimes when I'm speaking to other persons and helping them in life, I will actually be speaking to their higher self or their inner children
Mhm.
in my mind and in my spirit, in my soul, but not actually verbalizing it, but still expressing that through my energy field to them, because they're not consciously ready to hear maybe the advice that I have, but their inner children and their higher self are. So is that what you mean, or what do you mean exactly?
When,
Subliminal messages.
yeah, yeah, when you, okay, so everyone that's watching this is going to be more of an evolved being. They have I'm going to assume that most of you have stepped past sitting in a 3D argument and getting stuck in that. um it's part of life. That's going to, you're going to have misunderstandings, and you're going to have a lot of people. Okay, I want to make this concise. When you start, you're going to be tested.
Facts.
Okay, so when you tell the universe, oh, I'm ready, that it has to get some stuff out of the way. I don't know why. It's probably to build character. So
Strength
so
and resiliency.
yeah, yeah.
uh,
So
well, it's also to teach you, like, hey, you need to be using better discernment about who you were. Like, you're
yeah,
wasting time and energy having arguments with
yeah,
people. Like, go
yes.
find your people. Okay.
Please, please
Yes.
remember that. Please remember that. Everything, like, if we are not here, we're here to help.
Yeah.
We're here to activate people. We're here to unlock, and we're here to share information when it's ready to be received. We are not here to solve other people's problems.
Or convince people of our
Yeah.
magic. Yes.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes.
So when you get through the period where you feel like you're tested, because people are going to wonder why all of a sudden you've stepped up in your ability to see things for the way they are, not um, stay present in an argument. Like, if you don't participate in an argument, it can't happen.
Hmm.
That's going to
And
trigger,
that triggers people.
that triggers people, and it's going to make them angry. And then they're going to be wondering why you know what you know, because they know you're right, but they don't want to admit it because they're still pissed because you won't argue with them. Once you get past that stuff, they're those people are going to continue to come to you for advice, because they're going to recognize that you have something to offer. It's going to change the dynamic within your relationship, but as long as you stay in a very neutral position, it's okay. Okay, so once you get to the point that they're not coming for you anymore, and they're actually like not even testing you anymore, and they're starting to utilize you as a resource, you can plant seeds in the a few things that you say, and just make them quick. Like, this is not the experience that I've had with my son, but when he is complaining about something or whatever, or like I find that he's watching some dumb argumentative YouTube something or whatever, right? I'll Years ago I started saying, hey, pick something that makes you happy or whatever. And then I just started saying, even though I knew he wasn't going to grasp this immediately, I would say, um, make choices for high vibration, high frequency. And I would repeat that. I would drop that in as I was explaining other things simply, and just let it go, not checking, did he comprehend what I said, or whatever. Eventually, I would hear him when he was frustrated about something, he would say, high vibration, high frequency. But I was like, I got through,
Yeah.
because now if he's saying that, he's comprehending it. He understands that he's fighting himself and his impulses and his urges to do the dumb stuff that he was doing that was frustrating him. So you can plant higher vibrational seeds in people that aren't ready to speak that language, because that's when you're talking to their higher selves. And when it's ready, it will click. And
Oh yeah,
then
you can straight talk to people's higher selves.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was a long way of getting there. But um, the best way is to ask, like, you're really good at this. You ask someone when they come to you with a problem, and you, in your mind, usually a few things happen. You're like, oh, you've been complaining about this for a year, or oh my gosh, you don't see that you are the reason that this is happening, or um, it's because of negative thinking or whatever. Instead of calling them out on that immediately, ask them where how does this affect you? If they're complaining about something, but it's not even part of their life,
Hmm.
politics or
Or what are
whatever,
you going
like,
to do about it? I
yeah,
love asking that question. I love
yeah,
that. Well, what are you going to do to make forward movement? What are you going to
yeah,
do to see change? That really triggers people, but it is a way to open up them getting out of their own way and out of the vortex that they have created, and it opens a window for them to connect to their own higher selves, because
yeah,
they're like, oh yeah, what am I going to do about this? I don't have to be a victim of these circumstances. Like,
yeah.
oh, I'm actually in
Oh,
charge
yeah,
of my experience. Yeah.
yeah,
And that really, when somebody is vibrating kind of on a lower frequency and doesn't want to meet you where you're at in frequency, if you say, well, what are you going to do about it? If they don't want to create forward movement, they will leave you alone
yeah.
because they know
And
you're about to go in with them on it.
yeah, yeah. Don't, you know what? Don't come. Listen, you don't
Yeah.
have to take my advice, but why are you asking?
Yeah. Well, some
You
people
know?
want you to put a
Yeah,
band-aid on
yeah,
their situations and just make them temporarily feel better. That's where a lot of empaths
yeah,
get locked in with energy vampires. And it
yeah.
makes us feel good because we're so compassionate that we want to help everybody. But you got to use discernment. Channeling is not for everybody. And when I mean channeling is not for everybody, we're all channelers. What I mean is we don't have to utilize our gifts on everyone. You need to be more selective about how deep you are going in with others, because it can be very
Yeah.
incredibly draining to be speaking to somebody who does not want help and support and just wants the band-aid. But if it's like you and me having a conversation, every time you and I channel with one another and help each other, it always leaves both of us feeling so much better, so
Hmm.
high vibes, so high frequency, right? But I've had to learn over the years that my gifts are for a selective people, and I can help everybody. I drop seeds everywhere, even people who are like, confrontational and all these different things, right? But I only have so much time and energy.
Hmm. Well, that's why getting to the root of the problem is so much. It's a very efficient. It's very efficient. Like if you're hearing this like 3 minute explanation of what a shitty day they had, it's not it's good to get things off your chest. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we those things happen, and sometimes if you just speak them out loud and get it out, then your brain doesn't loop to it anymore, and you're not standing in the shower having an argument with somebody that you experienced 6 hours ago, and
Yep.
I wish I would have said this or whatever, right? So getting it out is very healthy. That's fine, because it's not a trauma dump necessarily, as it is like, uh what did just happen to me, and then you talk through it and then it's over.
Yeah,
But
they're
if
trying
you
to figure it out. They're trying to be more
yeah
self-aware, and they're using you as a mirror.
but if you can listen and then hear the get right to the root of what caused it, or right to the root of like um what why you think the experience happened to them, or how they can use it to shift and change. If you can share it back without sounding self-righteous or judgmental, if you can just share it openly back, um, with compassion, it'll deflate all of the other stuff, and then they don't, like, the problem is solved, because
Yeah,
they're
it
victims
saves
of it
both of you
anyway.
so much
Yeah,
time and energy. Like so much time
yeah,
and energy for you just be like, "Hey, do you want my advice?" And then like you said, put the compassion lens over what you're about to say. Like on like imagine that there is a filter that is coming over your mouth,
yeah,
okay? And like this
yeah,
is going to come from love and compassion and empathy, and it might be sharp, but
yeah,
at least I can soften the edges of it. And hey, this is what I see. This is the pattern that I see. Or this is you not having great self-concept, or you not holding good boundaries, or you not respecting yourself, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
If your intention is coming from love and you're speaking to an open person, they are going to be receptive either way. Even
Cool.
if it has a harsh tone to it, they're going
Yeah.
to say, "Oh, I'm glad that you pointed that out for me because I can't see it."
I've had this problem for 20 years, and in this one conversation I've seen it for what it is, and now
Yeah.
I want to do it again. Like, what a relief. Okay, if you have, if you have children, or you have been a server, like a restaurant or bartender. So with the children thing, I remember I learned a long time ago, I thought this was so valuable. You don't ask your kid, what do you want for dinner? You say, do you want spaghetti or do you want rolled tacos? They're going to pick one. How
Hmm.
easy was that? It was so easy. It was so easy. Don't let them go all over the place and whatever. Like, give people concrete ways, um, but let them come to their own conclusion, because it's really important. The only way somebody grows is if they come to the conclusion on their own.
Yeah, have
You
their
can
own
come,
aha moment.
yeah, you can come to me for advice, and I if I'm in general, I believe I'm able to give it pretty well. But really, all I want to do is spark the decision in you,
Mm.
and that's part of channeling. That's the whole reason we do this. Now, as a server, if you walk up to a table and you say, "Do you want iced tea or coffee?" or okay, so they say, it's so easy to make that decision, right? If somebody
Hmm.
gives you two choices and they're both solid choices, you know right from wrong, you know what you like and you don't like. Um, when I help people design wedding cakes in my 3D life, and I sketch something out based on what they asked for, the first thing I say is, "What? Tell me what you don't like." I'm not looking for negativity. I'm telling you to speak your truth.
Hmm.
I'm telling you to tell me this doesn't resonate with me, because when I can understand what you want, I'm going to be able to help you.
Hmm.
But if I don't give you the opportunity to, if being polite gets in the way, or being afraid to speak your truth gets in the way, I'm not going to make you happy. I'm not going to do my job. You're not going to be happy. You're going to be pissed that you spent money, And so when it comes to channeling, um, speak your truth, and also give that person the platform to make a choice. And the way you do that is you ask them compelling questions, like, what are you going to do about this? How does this make you feel?
Or
When
where do
this,
you think this first started?
yeah,
Who in
or
your
what,
family is a representative of
yeah,
this?
whose
Or your
voice
friends?
whose voice are you hearing, is my favorite question to ask.
Yes.
When you are, when you're afraid of moving forward, or you're questioning yourself, or you're judging yourself, whose voice is that? Is it your voice? Is it your parents' voice? Is it the
Mm-hmm.
teacher's voice? Is it social media's voice? Is it
Mm-hmm.
a peer? Whose voice is that? The moment you identify whose voice that is, it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah,
Like,
you just
it's
identify with it being your identity.
yeah, when you
Yeah.
realize that it's not you saying all these hateful things to you, or if you realize that it is you saying all these hateful things to yourself, just enlightening, that right there can change
Mm-hmm.
your life, um
Absolutely.
something you said earlier, and I don't, it doesn't matter.
I was going to say the points that you were making too are when you were saying helping people discover their own aha moments. This is why when you're channeling, you do not have to have the right answers.
Hmm.
You can really use your intuition and discernment, look at whatever problem that they're having, or even your own stuff. And if you can pinpoint one trigger or one behavioral pattern or one obstacle or challenge that you can clearly define that is tripping them up to get to where they want to go, just tell them that. It doesn't
Hmm.
even have to be the super root of it. What, because people are very multidimensional. There's a lot of layers to being a human and all of the experiences that we go through. And so let's say somebody is worried about money, okay, over here, but you can clearly see that there's some inner child stuff going on here with something that happened to them in fifth grade that doesn't seem like it's correlated at all. But because they are a whole being, they are correlated with one another in some essence, right? And so if you are over here saying what you need to say, it is going to be connected and it is still going to help them regardless
Hmm.
because this is still a pain point trauma wound over here that they haven't dealt with. Like that's okay
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Okay. There's a lot
And
of
it's,
times where I have sessions where they'll come to me for one thing and their higher self is like, nope, not
mm-mm.
today.
Yeah,
We're going to
no.
talk about all this stuff over here
Yeah.
because this is taking up more in their energy field than this problem that they got over here. They're not seeing what they actually need help with.
Well, in that issue that happened in fifth grade, you, that the person probably compartmentalized that and put it so far away from how they uh, regularly make decisions that they don't realize that that is a point of where they're stuck and they're
Yeah.
never
Or
going
it
to
could
go.
have
Yeah.
affected their money.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause let's say that it's a trauma wound that made them very indecisive.
Hmm.
Even though that doesn't technically have to do with your money, you can be very
Hmm.
indecisive with your money.
Hmm.
It is actually correlated with one another.
And or you can spend money for comfort because you
Hmm.
are just every daily avoiding something that you could finally work through. And so when that stuff comes up, deal with it. Okay.
Yeah.
While you were talking, I saw I made a correlation. I always refer to myself as an activator because I know I am. Like I
Hmm.
just know that that word is part of my makeup, but we all are. And so I saw like a pot on the stove, and then I saw a beaker with a fire under it, and it made me realize we are that heat source that gets underneath something and heats it up and causes the issues to rise to the surface.
Hmm.
And at that moment, because they're up and in the realm of the conversation, that's when you know that is when you deal with it. So sometimes it does take something painful or activating or like a catalyst to get it going.
Hmm.
But then once it's like activated, that's why that's the whole reason we're doing these sessions. The whole reason, because our the people watching the your students taking this quantum academy are not going to be flipping tarot cards on except for fun on a regular basis and just asking people or telling people when their how when their love life is going to improve or when they're going to get a job. Your
Yeah.
students are going to be operating
This
on
is
a much
very
higher,
deep soul work.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
higher level. So we're going to just bypass that stuff because you're maybe in the
I'm like,
beginning.
tell me, I need to know your deepest,
Yeah.
darkest trauma.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
Yeah.
for
Let me
real.
help
Like,
you with that. So
we're
I
not
can
going to
help you
waste
make the
time.
most forward
Well,
movement.
you want to know why that you're not in a relationship? Because of something that happened in fifth grade.
Yeah. Yeah.
You want to know why money slips through your fingers?
It's the things that are so far
Yeah.
deep down in there, and that like, what's the point in talking to you about all of these surface level things?
Yeah.
Like we got to
So
get in
go there. Go there.
there.
Go
Okay, we
there.
gotta get in
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Now when I do want to say really quick
Yeah.
that a lot of times people are light workers and empaths are very trepidatious about getting into this work because it has brought them so much pain in their own lives because people get very triggered by us even if we're not having these conversations outright with other people. Like you said, we are the fire underneath the beaker and we bring people's shadows to the light. And it's
Hmm.
very, very off putting to people, especially because we can see what is in their subconscious when they cannot. And we make them question themselves and we make them want to make different choices. And not everybody wants to do that. And I want to say, as somebody who is a seasoned channeler, as yourself, that was a big fear of mine in the beginning because I had received so much flack from it from other people. I was always the rainbow sheep and like, why is she so sensitive? Why is she all up in my business and all this stuff? I will say that everybody who is in my world and in my realm wants that from me.
Yes.
They want
Yes.
it.
Yes.
They're like, please, please bring all this stuff up as deep as you can and let's sift through it. And what a blessing and thank you.
That's why
Everybody.
strangers tell you their deep darkest secrets within
Yeah.
5 minutes because
Yeah.
their higher selves push them towards you and then they don't even realize what they're saying.
Oh
Like so
yeah.
many
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm sure you've so many people have said to me, I've never told anybody this before. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Wow, how did we even get here? And it's okay because I'm not asking questions like a therapist where it makes people like
Oh yeah, you're
I
holding
hope.
safe space and just asking
Yeah,
discovery questions.
yeah, that's really all it is.
Yeah.
And
So once
oh,
you get over that
yeah.
hump, once you get over that hump, just for everybody watching, like once you get over that hump and you realize that your hypersensitivity is a blessing
Hmm.
and that it can be your greatest gift,
Hmm.
especially if you want to do this professionally, you will only start attracting people who want this from you. I do not
And
have conversations with people
yeah,
anymore that I know it's going to trigger them. I just
yeah. The
save
moment
my magic for
I
those
well, listen,
persons.
listen, when not you,
Yeah,
you have to listen to the people you're speaking to. When you hit that point where they're not ready, and
disconnect.
they, and they say, like my boyfriend on a regular basis, I don't want to talk about I don't want to talk about the childhood trauma,
Yeah.
blah blah blah. Like if he hears me, I don't stop bringing that up in different places in conversation because I'm not trying to push him. But the moment he says, I don't feel like talking about that right now. Listen,
Yeah.
you're not here to prove a point. Your job is done. The moment they tap out, your job is done because you're going to go your separate ways and they're going to be thinking about that for the next
Mm-hmm.
week and they're going to do the work. So the next time that conversation comes up between the two of you, they've actually done some work that hadn't been done prior because that's what triggering is, and that's fine. But it's really important that you don't break the connection that you have by pushing them too hard because when depending on people's ability to deal with their trauma, when you feel raw or exposed, you may retaliate against the person
Mm-hmm.
that brought it up, or you might also like you might transfer your frustration towards them. They might start seeing you in a negative light. Like you don't want to invite any of that. It's going to happen, but whatever. But yeah, like really listen and actually stop. And so one of the points you made me think of this. Just everyone needs to know this. When you start channeling and you go into a trance-like state, which just feels like you're relaxed, that's it.
Yeah, just like
it
deep meditative
that's
state.
it.
Yeah, you're just very
You're
peaceful.
just it's like it's
Yes.
the feeling of meeting someone for coffee or tea and sitting at the table and catching up and you're laughing and you're in the flow state and you lose sense of time.
Yeah, you're not
That's
worried about anything that's
yeah,
going on
that's
environmentally or in your life, like your bills and your
yeah,
job and all this
like
stuff. You're just here.
yeah. When you're enjoying sitting and talking to somebody, that's a trance-like state. That's all we're suggesting. We're not telling you you're going to go see yourself in the galaxies
Yes.
or whatever. Like if it that stuff
You
comes
can't do
through,
that.
trust me. Trust
That's
me. Yeah,
later on. Yeah,
that's
later.
next. That's next.
Yeah.
But and that also feels really natural, so don't worry about it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the most important thing how and where we're saying when you're dealing with people, especially in the beginning triggers and stuff, your job in the beginning and also as you continue through is you remove your ego and you remove your emotions. You can feel
You have
kindness
to
and
be
compassion.
objective.
You have to be 100% objective. This is not something that comes naturally to us, but because we are told from the moment we are born, this is a binary system, everything has a place, everything
Hmm.
fits into a box, and that your ego is going to drive you, your fight or flight is going to drive you, your adrenaline, like all the basic survival techniques that we are pushed into from being on the playground to trying to get into the right college or whatever it is, all those things, those are designed to trigger your ego. Those are designed to keep you eh, they say that it's for motivation, but it secretly uses shame, self-judgment, uh, contemplating what's wrong with you on a regular basis. That's your ego. Your ego is designed to keep you alive. It's designed to keep you safe, but it also gets in the way of any work that you're trying to do beyond the 3D. And so when you go into a trance-like state, you remove your ego and you do your best to bypass theirs. Because when their ego is gone and someone's in like a hypnotic state, they can they can talk about anything that needs to come up. They can be objective and they can hack through their trauma without even having they can be fully in the traumatic episode and not be affected by it. And then when you both are done and you come out of it, all the work has been done in the location that it was supposed to. And when they get back in touch with their feelings and their emotions and their ego again, it's it was bypassed for the event. And so now when they get back into their human feelings, that event has been removed for them. I get it's,
Oh
I don't
yeah,
know.
that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
when I'm doing that's also why it's really important if you want to work with others that you are consistently working on healing yourself and learning how to override your ego and how to let go of your judgment and your biases, because if you can become a completely neutral being in conversations, you are able to hold very deep sacred space for others where they feel completely relaxed to tell you everything that they need to tell you because they know you are not holding any judgments against them. But that also means that you have to learn not to hold judgments against self. If you are shaming and guilting yourself, holding judgments, negative self talk, that stuff projects onto other people and they can feel it. But if they feel like, hey, this is a very healed being who has a really good homeostasis in here, and I can tell that they love themselves very deeply, they're going to be all so comfortable around you. And they're just going to be like, here you go, here's all the things, right? And that's very healing, being able to hold sacred space like that. With trance channeling, like you were talking about, it's almost like, okay, if I'm more in the 3D and my central nervous system is overreacting and I'm all up in my emotions and I can't look at my things objectively and I'm trying to go to an energy healer to help me, I'm a human who's trying to connect to my multidimensionality up here, right? But when you're going to a healer or a channeler, what they're doing is they're stepping into a multidimensional form, talking down to your human. Okay, so it's like different lenses. It's you learning how to be an objective observer outside of yourself, of
Yeah.
like, oh, let me look at my human. How can I help my human through this? Okay,
Yeah.
right, where you're not passing judgment or feeling shameful or guilty for anything. You're not upset with your human about whatever. It's just how can we work through this without all the attachments that you have to this.
Yeah.
Does that sound about right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Well, and
fix my camera here. Go ahead.
also not having to, a lot of times people don't want to talk about stuff because it's really heavy. But if you can get them into a state where they're bypassing the feelings and the triggers and the emotions and the ego, and they can just talk about it as if it's,
Like an outsider story.
yeah,
Yeah, like, hey, let
that's
me
when
tell you what happened to my inner children. Let me help to
yeah.
tell you what happened to my
And
teenagers. Not happening to me currently, but what
yeah,
happened to me in my life.
what I've noticed, and I don't think about this often, but I've been in our conversation, it came to me when I am channeling and helping somebody through a situation, I am not my human form either, like you were saying.
Yeah, you move up into a higher dimensional place, a higher self, a
Yeah.
higher awareness.
So I'm not affected by what I'm telling them either. I'm not
Yes.
using my own life experiences. I'm not referring to anything how my human would react if it was in that situation. I'm removed. And so I'm able to really speak to them on a level that doesn't have my lens, unless I bring down advice or
Yeah.
something. Like
Yeah.
it, and you'll notice that. You'll notice that you don't probably won't notice it at the time, but you'll realize that you're able to go into a realm, um it's like a safe space that
Oh
doesn't,
yeah.
judgment's not there, like none of it's there. It's literally just talking through a scenario, seeing it for what it is, um letting the inner child, let's assume, know that they're safe and protected and that they absolutely don't need to stay there anymore. That this happened a long time ago. It's never going to happen again. They can now step out of the place where you hid them, um, and open the door and walk out, and then merge with a higher version of that self. Now, it doesn't mean that that episode didn't happen when they were 5, but it means that you will no longer be
Attached
limited.
and living in it.
and limited by it
Yeah.
anymore. It's not going to be the reason that you're afraid of something, which doesn't even make sense.
Yeah.
So, oh, okay. Sorry. Did you want
No,
to
it's
say something?
okay. I was going to say that when or channeling has been really beneficial for helping me heal in my life because I say this over and over again, but almost every single person that I work with is a younger version of me energetically. Even if we haven't been through the same trauma wounds, we have similar trauma wounds and we've had similar life experiences. They may just be different flavors. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So when I am able to get into that channeling state, like you're talking about, where I move up into a multidimensional form, up into a higher self, and I am not speaking as the human sage. I am speaking as a version of myself that does not have the attachments and the judgments and the ego and all of this. When I'm giving advice, this is advice I need to hear too.
Mm-hmm.
So that when I am going through these things in the future, I remember what I said.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really helping both of us at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I don't think anyone who has had a perfect life, and that would be hard to find. I don't think anyone that anyone that's going to meet people in sessions and channel information that's through their higher selves and their guides to help them. They we all have lived a life with a lot of trauma, a lot of um horror, like being victims, um alcohol and drug abuse, horrific relationships. We've had all of it or most of
Mm-hmm.
it.
Yeah.
Because and the reason that happened, so we get here and we put ourselves um in a place where we are going to be giving from our highest version of ourselves without emotion or ego and all that other stuff, because we're able to do that because we've gone through that stuff, because we've lived through it, because we know what it feels like, because we have felt abandoned, we've been abused, we've been heartbroken, but we have healed, or we're in the process of healing, and we don't let it color all of our decisions now.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had the life experiences where when someone tells us and we've gone through it, our we're not jarred by it. We're actually able to be like, their higher self recognizes that our higher self has experienced that.
Oh yeah, they're like, "Oh yeah,
Yeah.
you get it and you have the tools and
Yeah.
resources," or you can help them have a different perceptual awareness, or even just
Yeah.
like offer love and compassion and empathy. Like sometimes all people need is just to tell you what happened. And then their inner children and teens can let go
And
because you get it. You understand. I was just saying that to somebody the other day, like when I'm doing inner child trauma work, sometimes people are like, "Oh, it wasn't as heavy as I thought." And I was like,
yeah.
"No, because your inner child needed to tell somebody who really deeply understands how bad that was painful and how bad it hurt them on a very deep level that y'all both have experiences, and then they just let it go. They're like, oh, they get it, okay.
Yeah. And it
They
wasn't a
understand.
5 year old, it was a 5 year old lens that needed to
Yeah,
speak it through, which isn't that
they never
complicated.
had a parent to
Yeah.
tell. They never had a parent or a caregiver to comfort them and tell them like, hey, I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah.
It's
And
not your fault.
it is a lot easier to unload and admit that you are a victim of domestic violence to someone who has been through
Oh
domestic
yeah,
violence,
yeah.
because all of the shame and embarrassment and admitting that you put yourself in a dangerous position, like all of that stuff can go away because you're talking to somebody
Mm-hmm.
who already has been through it. So there is a reason that all of us have been through some major stuff to get here, but the beauty of it is we have exposed all of it and worked through it, accepted it, forgiven it, whatever we needed to do, and now we're above it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but I usually tell my in my sessions, um, okay, that was a book from your past. Close it, put it on the bookshelf. That's your bookshelf. It exists. If you really need to take it down and look at it, that's okay. But you don't need to read it anymore. You don't, that is not your story anymore. You are healing and you are moving forward, and when you get to know someone, you don't have to tell that story anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter.
Like,
It
where
was
are we
part,
at today? Where are we
yeah,
at today? And
yeah,
what are we doing to move forward? Not
yeah,
invalidating the things
yeah.
that the inner children and teens went through, but like, if you're continuously talking about those things, you are putting them through pain.
We were just talking about
You're
that
keeping
yesterday.
it alive.
Yeah,
Yeah, you were keeping that pain and
yeah,
trauma alive where you could just be like, hey, we already worked through that. And if we
yeah,
need to in the future, we'll do that. But where are we at today?
yeah,
What are we doing
yeah,
tomorrow?
yeah. It
Okay.
is. We are actively asking you to bring it up and blow it up. We're not saying don't talk about it, but
Yeah.
once you've talked about it and once you've really understood it, remember that it has a place and it doesn't serve you any longer. And if you want to fully experience passion, excitement, joy, happiness, and loving your life, then those things are just a chapter in a book that you've already read, and you don't need to keep rereading it. You do not need to suffer any longer. Healing happens really quickly
Hmm.
when you are ready. When
Yeah.
you're ready, healing can happen
It can be
overnight.
instantaneous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. We can lighten this up. Um, I was thinking of something to help people really understand and tune in. So if I were to describe, um, okay, so you walk into a house and you start to smell a cake baking, and you can smell the aroma of like vanilla and butter and cinnamon and all that, and you walk into the kitchen and you just get hit with this, like it brings you so much pleasure, and you're fully in that the moment of understanding. You can even taste it just because you
Hmm.
smell it, right? That's how easy it is to channel, because when you can get yourself into a flow state and you can I need to connect that better. You can it in the same way that
It
it's
just
so
it wafts in your face and
yeah, it comes
it
right
just
in,
comes in. It just
and
comes right
now
in.
all of a sudden
Yeah.
you know what it would feel like to like to have that cake on the table and cut a slice and put it on your plate, and you go to you go to take the first bite, like what the texture would feel like in your mouth, how there would be buttercream and cake and it, whatever, right?
Mhm.
um that's how easy it is to get into the flow state when you put yourself there. It's not some huge magical transformation that takes place. It's just being able to use your creativity. um a suggestion is made by opening the door and smelling something, and all of a sudden there's this whole story that attaches to it. does that
Yeah.
does that
Yeah.
make
No, it
sense?
does. Yeah.
Okay.
You got to one of the ways to get into the flow state is leaning into yourself and saying, I am wise and I am knowledgeable and I have had a lot of life experience. And even if and you can give yourself permission to, like, even if it's not psychic things that are coming through, I can offer this person advice, period.
Yeah,
Like, I am a wealth of wisdom. Okay. And you just
yeah,
saying that to yourself, right?
dude, own that.
And yeah,
Yes.
yeah, owning that you were an energy healer and you have been for a long time, even if you don't claim modalities, you're here for a reason. If you're listening to this right now, you are an energy healer and you have been for a long time. That's how you were able to understand what Kimberly and I are even talking about. So
And we are not more advanced than you
yeah, there's
at
right.
all. Like
Right. It's just
you
the
are.
remembering.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
remember more. We remember more because maybe we've been on the path a little bit longer than you have in
yeah.
this incarnation, but it's just remembering. It's not learning, right? It's just these are already your gifts and talents. But giving yourself permission to be an open channel for others and leaning into yourself and just accepting that you're gifted and talented and also utilizing your behavioral pattern recognition. Like everybody here that's listening to this has good behavioral pattern recognition. Like, this connects to this and this and this and this and this and this. Like, it's okay to use more of your 3D gifts as well. Like, I tell people all the time, like, yeah, Reiki's great, light language is great, all of this stuff. Okay. But also accountability, determination, motivation, courage, leadership, all of those things are valuable things that other people need to learn.
Hmm.
So many people need to learn those lessons in life, and all of us hold those within ourselves. That's why we're here, learning how to do all this together. Teach people those things too, right? You don't have to just lean on your modalities, like lean on whatever your soul is wanting to bring forth to that person.
Yeah. Yes. And it's so easy when people say, remember who you are. That will make sense when you start to remember who you are.
Yes.
Like you've always been capable of this. Like
Yeah.
you're you're intuitive, you're smart, you care, you've been through it, you want to help, you want to be of service to others, or else you wouldn't be watching this video. It's fascinating to learn about magic. It's fascinating to learn about clairs. It's exciting and it's um, very seductive to want to be able to work in the magical realms. But this is the only time in a history that we haven't been magical people.
Yeah.
Like that's all it was in ancient history. That's all it
Hmm.
was in ancient dynasties. There was so much magic and it was embraced. And then religion, like organized religion
Hmm.
was designed to
Cut us off from that and create
control.
separation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 And I'm not and religion
Not
can be a
specific
beautiful
any
thing.
religions,
Yeah,
right? Just religion constructs and
yeah.
programming.
It
Yes.
because you know what? No one is in control of anything that happens to you. No one is in charge of
Yeah.
you. No one can tell you what is right or wrong.
Yeah, that's a
And
facadal matrix that they've
yeah,
made us believe. Right.
and no one and you and we as creatures with the capacity to learn multidimensionality should never invest our belief system into one box or one leader or one like if you want to learn about like when we go down rabbit holes and we're
Hmm.
fascinated about something, we typically have 10 different social media creators to
Hmm.
get that information from, right? So why would we stop and let one person in our life tell us that we're too much or we're too loud or we're too disconnected from reality or what, like, dude, that's a compliment. If so if someone tells
Oh
you that
yeah.
your head is in the clouds,
You're out
thank
of this
them.
world. Like,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you.
them.
Thank
Yes, good.
you. I'm
Oh,
glad that
good.
you can see that about me.
Yeah, I've hacked the matrix. It
Yeah.
sucks to be you.
Yeah.
I'll guess what? Who's happy in this conversation? You or me? You're being critical, you're being
That's the
judgmental, you're
tea.
putting me in a box,
Yeah.
and I'm walking on rainbows. Who cares?
Yeah.
Who cares? You're
Yeah.
happy and you're magical. Okay. I've been holding things to remind me because boy do I segue.
I was
Um,
wondering what you were holding. I was like, what is
okay.
okay?
You channel every single day with your animals. When your dog walks or your cat walks up to you and looks you in the face and you're like, "Oh, you want to go for a
I
walk
mean,
or
you
are
know
you
what they're gonna
hungry?"
say. Yeah.
You're talking to them.
Yeah.
Their animals are such great teachers. Animals can animals work in the quiet realm that we're supposed to be we need to shut the fuck up sometimes, excuse me, and just listen. And with an animal, that's all you can do. That's all you can do. Animals are incredible communicators. I mean, my turtles are incredible communicators. I had no
Hmm.
idea that turtles had huge personalities. Mine do. My pigeons, like animals, will tell you exactly what they want, exactly what they need, exactly how they feel. And they also store energy codes and give them back to you on a regular basis. So when an animal approaches you, be ready to receive because they have an
I
abundance
had
to give.
bees flying around me in my face yesterday, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what do you have for me?"
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was like,
Yeah.
"What do you?" Yeah.
Frequency and vibration,
Yeah.
healing frequency and vibration. That's
Yeah.
what they have for you. Every animal has something for you, and they give it freely because they are here to
They are
store it. And
unconditional love.
yeah,
Yeah.
so if you want to challenge yourself onto, am I listening? First of all, be alone and be quiet. Um, that is an advanced level, and it sounds funny, but in the beginning, a lot of times we don't trust ourselves yet. So being alone and with our own thoughts can be very agitating. It can be scattered or whatever. So don't worry about that in the beginning. Start with an animal because an animal is forcing you to communicate without language.
Hmm.
And so you can test your ability to comprehend. And you walk up and you see a crow sitting in a tree and that crow doesn't fly away. So you have a minute with that crow and you start thinking like, oh, what is the perspective? What are they seeing when they're up on the branch and they're looking at me? You're starting a thread of communication between you and that animal that doesn't involve language. And so it's forcing you to use your skills that you're trying to fine tune. Keep doing that. Keep
That's
hearing the,
actually an advanced level of channeling too, of
yeah,
being able to transcend language and to be able to understand without the tangible forms. So that's a great way to accelerate.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Trees,
Yeah,
what is the
trees.
tree
Yeah.
telling me?
Or the
Like
lake.
they're blowing in the wind. Like um, use things that are alive. Everything's alive because everything's energy. Use inanimate objects is a different version
But
of
that
it. Like
have more life force
but
energy in them.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Like when I was
Yes.
little, I was hyper aware of like my stuffed animals, and I wanted to make sure that nobody looked like they were squished or fell off the bed. Like
Yes.
I wanted to honor them. Um, and that was my own thing. But so that would be an inanimate object. That's not necessarily what I'm saying, but pick something that has an ability to communicate with you. You just haven't tapped into it before.
Mhm.
Most of you here, probably everybody listening understands communication with animals, but take it to a different level.
You
Like
can do it with your
have a
crystals.
conversation. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
you
you
can
can
do
do
it
it
with
with your crystals and ask it to have a conversation and go within and close your
yeah,
eyes, or like your plants.
yeah,
Like I could meditate with my
yes,
plants back here and ask them, ask them a question about what's going on in your life.
yeah,
Ask how, what, and why questions. Okay,
it,
I was talking to somebody earlier about how do you connect with your higher self. Do not ask them yes and no questions,
yeah,
because they're the whole point of talking to other perspectives and facets of yourself is to help you understand yourself. Yes and no, do not do that. That is definitive.
okay,
Sit and meditate with the animals, sit and meditate with
yeah,
the plants, the trees, and say what, how, and why questions about your life, and just sit in silence
yes,
and wait for
and
it.
once you get answers, then take another step and remember that the answer that you received at this moment is answering if nothing changes. That's another thing that
Yes.
we have to be careful of. So
Yes.
so we're practicing our communication skills, whatever. Now we're to the point where we're actually receiving information. Maybe we're using a the word just went out of my head.
A pendulum.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we're
Gotcha.
using a pendulum or runes or tarot. Now, those are tools. They're beautiful, they're fun. Go ahead and use them. But just remember, when you get your answer, it is literally in the moment.
Yeah, for
Shut,
this snapshot in time only, period.
yeah,
If you make no other changes in your life,
yeah.
this is it right now.
Yeah. So if you don't like the answer that you get, there's a reason for that. If you don't like a hard no and you keep getting the hard no, even though that's something you really want, that hard no, it was forcing you to change your perspective. It's change your time that you want to take a flight, change your time that you want to go for a drive, whatever it is. The here and now information helps, but I think that's why you're saying yes or no doesn't always
That's
do you
why I
justice.
do not
Yeah.
resonate with readers, and no shade if you're a person that does this, but that's not how timelines work. There's a lot of variables. Decisions put you on completely different paths. And
Yeah.
yes and no does work for right this second. But if you make any other choices or any other decisions at
Yeah.
all, you could have something completely different come through tomorrow. But if you understand yourself from a how, what, and why perspective,
Yeah.
then you have control over the pivots that you need to make instead of just
Yeah.
receiving information of like, oh, this is what's going to happen, period.
So say you ask a question, um, well, I don't want to think of it. So say you ask a question and you're using a pendulum and it keeps saying no. And you're like, why does it keep saying no? I actually feel pretty good about this. That no is going to force you to rethink and restructure why do I want this? Why should it be in my life? Why am I just being impulsive? Like those are the things that are going to help you get. So
Self-discovery questions.
yeah.
Back it
So
up with self-discovery questions.
because if you take that no and then the next day it ends up being a yes, you're going to start doubting yourself. Well, wait a
Mm-hmm.
minute, a no came through, but it happened anyway. Well, that's because that no forced you to rearrange things to get the yes that you wanted, but something needed to happen
Yeah,
first.
you had to
Yeah,
shift your
yeah.
energy to become a yes, right?
So
But
don't
just
let
don't
that,
take the
yeah.
no as like, oh, that's it.
Anytime somebody comes to me with a medical issue or they're about to go get medical information, I just did this with my friend. She was getting an MRI. Um, she fell and hit her head, and then she was in a car accident, a mild one, but still, they both jarred her brain. And she was getting some real scary information, especially when she was doing some research. And I said, look, no matter what you're told on Monday after that MRI, that means at this moment, if nothing changes, this is your outcome. But if you take this information and you decide I am going to do things that are going to nurture my brain and crossword puzzles that are going to help me with my short term or whatever it is, you are in control of everything that happens to you.
Mhm.
Never, ever, ever take anyone else's finality decision as the way things need to be.
Even us talking right now. I
Yeah.
always tell people, like, if you're listening to me chat, like, use your intuition discernment, and it may not be for you. Like,
Yeah.
you need to
Yeah. I don't,
expand outside of just listening to other persons and do what resonates with you. Yeah, but you at any point can pivot and change your energy field or your outcomes. Like, it's all loosey goosey. It depends on how steadfast you are with hard decisions. Like, don't make hard decisions. Like, if you're a friend who's like, okay, well, that's it, that's the diagnosis,
yeah. I was like,
then
don't
that's the
accept it.
time, that's the definitive, that's like getting a yes or no. That's the
Yeah.
definitive timeline that you will be on, right?
Don't let it. Now,
Yeah.
the only place, because I use this all the time, when someone says, hey, I'm having a get together. Do you want to come join me
Oh,
on
yes.
Friday night at 7?
That's
Okay.
different. No.
Me, it's always no.
Yeah.
So is it on Zoom?
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
How long do
Okay.
I have to be there? Yeah.
Uh,
Who's going to be there?
I love my friends. I love my friends.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Um, if okay, when someone says, do you want to come to this gathering at 7 o'clock on Friday night? At
Mhm.
that moment, if it lights your soul on fire and you cannot wait, it's a yes. If you, for a moment, slight second, immediately are like no, then it's 100% no. And you need to honor that. You
Yeah,
need
sometimes
to
you don't
honor
need to
that.
figure out why your body is trying to tell you no.
Yeah. Don't show
Yeah.
up to things that you do not want to participate in.
Yeah. Something that really
Don't,
helped me with that is to say, let me get back to you on that. I
yeah.
never, not
Yeah.
one time, ever say yes to anything because I have been a big people pleaser in my life.
Yeah.
And when somebody else is excited, I get in their energy and I'm
Yeah.
excited. And then I get home and I'm like, why did I say yes to that? And now I feel guilty for trying to get out of it. So I say, I'm going to look at my calendar and I will get back to you on it. It doesn't matter if it's phone calls, events, part, like
Yeah.
anything. I will text you later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just, and it doesn't mean that we're delicate or indecisive or whatever.
You
It
gotta check in
means
with your body.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Like, if it's not a hell yes, then it needs to be a no. Now, obviously, you
Yeah.
have to go to some things like family functions and things like that. We're talking about places and spaces where you have
Yeah.
like, opportunities to say no and not go.
Yeah. And say no more than you ever have before. And I
Yeah.
know that sounds and that's not negative and that's not counterproductive at all. We have been conditioned to be agreeable, especially women, to
Facts.
be agreeable for our entire life. We have been
Mm-hmm.
told what to do. We have been told how to act, what's polite, what's socially acceptable, how to dress, how to present yourself, how to perform, what to eat. We've been told our whole life how to be a human. And this conversation is acknowledging the fact that you are multidimensional and that there are a lot more components going on than what uh, you're being asked by someone else who's not here.
Mm-hmm.
And here doesn't mean you're special. Here just means that you woke up. Everyone has the capacity to wake up. They're all not going to, but here. And so if you want to continue to be a source that people can come to and be a channeler and be a seer or be the other end of the conversation when someone just really needs to talk about something and they don't realize you're channeling and that's okay too, you have to be happy. You have to be happy. You have to understand. You have to remember who you are. You have to feel confident. You have to acknowledge that you are a god and you are capable of doing anything that you set your mind to, realistically, not 3D wise, but like you're fantastic. You're incredible. you are desirable, you are wanted, and you are needed. And that's why people are coming to you, and you need to own that. And the only way you can get there is to be very decisive in your 3D life and tell someone yes or no. This doesn't feel right. It's not personal. I have a prior engagement. And if your prior engagement is to sit on your couch
Yeah.
and watch a movie on Disney, that's totally okay.
Self-preservation is key. You cannot do anything in life if your cup is empty. If you are struggling and busted down and you have no energy, like there's lots of I used to hear the no is a complete sentence. That doesn't resonate with me because I know that that hurts people when I do that. So there's lots of ways, like Kimberly saying, I don't have the energy for that right now. I'm not in the right headspace. I have other plans. Thank you so much. I appreciate you inviting me, but I won't be able to. And if they ask you why, that's a good indicator of somebody that probably doesn't need to be in your inner circle. Because if
Oh,
I said
guilt.
something, if I
Uh,
yeah, if I said to any of my soul tribe members, I'm not in the right energy, they'll say, okay. There's other people in my life that question, like, well, why not? And
well,
they're trying
because
to
they're
put that
taking
and
it
they're trying to
personal.
guilt right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is somebody who doesn't understand me fully.
Yeah. Yeah. There, you just, when you say I'm not in the mood, that's an I statement. But if someone receives that as, oh,
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to be around me, okay, you can go
Okay,
work
well
that
then
out on your
that's
own.
a you problem. Okay.
Yeah, you can go
Right.
work that out on your own.
That's a
Yeah.
you thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
Well,
like,
as we finish up here, Kimberly,
yeah.
I want to ask you because Kimberly and I are going to do some more chats like this as well because we have a plethora of other channeling topics that we want to talk about with everybody. But we got through a lot of it today. What is your favorite thing about channeling?
Uh,
As you're channeling that answer.
yeah. Um, I would say recognizing that I am a magical being.
Oh, love
A
that.
100%.
Hallelujah to that.
Yeah, like in as it's happening, it's as it's happening, I'm disconnected from ego, so I don't have these feelings. But afterwards, like, it is the most familiar thing you'll
Yeah.
ever do. It is the most you can ever manifest.
It is the most authentic version of you.
Yeah.
After
Sovereign.
I do that, I'm like, wow, I am amazing.
Yeah. And you should,
Yeah.
that is the healthiest thing to ever say because it's for the right
Yeah.
reasons.
Self-love, self-empowerment,
It's
confidence. Like that's just you seeing yourself in your true mirror lens. It's not
there's
egoic.
there's no competition. There's
Yeah.
nothing. Like, you stepped into the best version of yourself, and you use that moment to help another person.
Yeah.
Like, that is what everyone should want to do, is to you found your center, and you used it to serve in service of someone else. Like, it's incredible. And you're
Yeah.
helping yourself. Every time you help
Oh
someone
yeah.
work through something, you're totally helping yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the way to do this. You work on yourself, and you make your light shine brighter, so that people are drawn to your light, and you help them unlock. It is our job to take care of ourselves. It is our job to keep ourselves happy, to understand the mechanisms inside to keep us healthy. It is our
Mm-hmm.
job. When you decide that you want to be in service of others, the most important thing you can do is take care of yourself.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's saying no, and that's removing heavy metals, and that's eating lighter, and that's being grateful, and that's putting your feet on the dirt and grounding, and that's being kind to animals, and that is responding to others in the most compassionate and kind way that you can in every situation, because that's truly when you're being yourself and you're being authentic. And so, yeah, yeah.
That's why
uh,
that's why I tell people channeling is not just channeling beings. It's not just channeling like people have a very limited viewscape sometimes with channeling. I'm like, it's just you stepping into a higher version of yourself, which elevates your whole entire reality. Like, think about if you're just in your best state all the time because you learn how to be an open channel to self. And then if you help other people with that, great too. But if you learn how to channel yourself within, it changes everything in your entire life because
yes.
you're coming from the best version of you. Yeah, without the narratives and the stories and the judgments and the ego and the shame and the guilt, you're just like your best version. And can we be that way all the time? No, obviously, but
Yeah.
it helps you be in that state for more so of the time.
And from this conversation, please um, make note of your questions or ask questions
Oh yeah, there'll
throughout
be
the
a
whole
box
journey.
underneath here where you can ask your questions.
Yeah. Because we'll cover it in other topics, we'll
Yes.
cover what it's like to interact with deities and beings and see things and
Yeah, and
we
how to
like
hear the difference between your higher self and inner
yeah,
children. Yeah, there's a lot of things we'll talk about in our next chat, but
yeah,
future chats as well. So
yeah,
yes, please put your
and
questions.
we can cover all that. But
Yeah.
yeah, really it's just um when you may hear the word sovereign. And this is what it was like for me. I would hear that word and I look it up and I was like, well, I understand the topic. I mean, I understand the word, the definition, but then I had this week-long experience while these magical things happened to me. Like, there's no way I could ever bring all this. Like, there's no way that it wasn't magical, right? Like,
Hmm.
so many events happen. And at the end of that road trip, I was coming home and I was like, I completely understand what it means to be sovereign now. I am I have stepped above so much that used to bother me. Like I could care less about arguments that are taking place because I don't want to participate. I could care less about 3D topics that other people are still going through, but I don't need to participate. You know, like I
Yeah.
sovereign means that you stand in your own approval and your own recognition that you are capable of so much more and you're open to so much learning and you're open to so much beauty and love, like opening up your heart chakra and actually accepting love is really important
Oh yeah.
in order, you know, and we can talk about all this going forward, but yeah, you'll that moment when you're like, I am an individual, I am no longer a programmed person who bases my self-esteem on others' approval and um
I am my own validation.
yeah, yeah, and this will all make sense. Like you will. There's a difference between having self-confidence and feeling pretty good about yourself and then being like, oh yeah, no, yeah, wow, we're done with all of that. How fantastic is
Yeah.
that? Like I'm moving forward. I am my own enigma. I am untouchable, you know.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
only because it's because you've unlocked and you're able to see like the mysteries of the universe in a completely different way. Like you're able to see life in such a different way because you have such an expansive comprehension of what's going on around you that surpasses all of the heavy dumb stuff that just keep people stuck.
Oh
Then
yeah.
you are ready to be of service to other people.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And I will say we all get stuck down in the 3D and we all get triggered and behavioral patterns and bad habits and all this stuff. But once you hit that layer of sovereignty and you feel that for the first time, you never forget it.
Mm-hmm.
You will
It's an
always
epiphany.
be able to go back to that. If you
It's an
sit in
epiphany.
silence for 15 or 20 minutes, you
Yeah.
can recenter and be like, oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember who I am. I remember none of that stuff matters. I can rise above it. Let's look through our new perceptual lenses. You will never forget it.
Yeah.
That's what we're learning
And
here, getting how to get to
yeah.
that space.
And when you dip into a bad habit, when you eat too much sugar or you
You
smoke
be
a
watching
cigarette
yourself
or
do it now.
yeah,
You're not the person doing it. You're observing
yeah,
yourself do it.
and you're like,
Yeah.
wait, we don't do that
We're
anymore.
not
What the
supposed to.
hell?
What are
You
you
know,
doing?
it's just your body wanted some weird dopamine rush and
Yeah.
it chose an old way to bring it in. Don't punish yourself. Don't have any shame. Don't be mad. Don't think that you've slipped back and now you have to do all this work again. Those dumb impulsive choices are literally
It's just your
momentary.
human. Yeah, it's just your
Yeah.
human doing program behavioral things. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
So we do
you
have to
got
finish
that.
up. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, no, we're
Okay.
if you're still here, congratulations. You made
Yeah.
it through 2 hours of Quantum Academy.
Yes. And you can join us in the next round of the 2 hours when we come back. Okay. All right. Love y'all. We'll see you
All right.
later. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.